Black gold, a rather mythical description for the stimulating beverage that is enjoyed by hundreds of millions of people on a daily basis. It's here, in the Horn of Africa, where the growing and drinking of coffee began, and from here it spread throughout the world. In the last remaining natural forest of southwest Ethiopia, the genetic origins of Arabica coffee are still found today. At altitudes between 1,000 and 1,800 meters above sea level, the wild Arabica coffee grows as a shrub, thriving under the shade provided by the trees. Modern-day Arabica coffee has been domesticated from the plants that evolved in this natural forest. Over many decades, local communities have been collecting wild coffee plants and have planted them around their homesteads and in the nearby forest. As a result, a belt of coffee forest has flourished between the farmland and the natural forest. It is estimated that 92% of wild coffee genetic resources are found in this coffee forest created by farmers, while 8% remains in the natural forest. Coffee is Ethiopia's primary export product. It directly or indirectly affects the livelihoods of over 15 million people. Major towns have grown up based on the coffee trade. These are very busy, especially during the coffee harvest. Coffee picking provides temporary paid employment for the local people, but also attracts many migrant workers. Traders visit the area to buy coffee from the villages, and mules are brought in to carry the coffee through the forest. Many generations have depended on the wild Arabica, but there are risks to this coffee-based economy. The dense concentration of plants in the coffee forest belt could attract pests or diseases. If they strike, they will spread rapidly with devastating effects over large areas, and could even affect some of the patches of wild coffee in the natural forest. Some farmers may want to replace the wild plants from the natural forest with uniform hybrid varieties, hoping for better yields. This, in turn, would endanger the pool of genetic diversity in the coffee forest. Hence, it is vital to keep the wild coffee plants in the natural forest, where they are at less risk of disease and pests because the density of plants is much lower, and where these wild Arabica varieties can continue to evolve in their natural habitat, with the full range of plants and animals with which they have developed. The natural forest includes mountains where species can migrate up the altitudinal range to cope with climate change, or where, in response to the climate change or diseases, genetic evolution may take place. It is of the utmost importance to maintain the genetic resources for future generations, not only in the coffee forest belt, but especially in the natural forest. So far, there have been numerous difficulties in attempting to maintain the natural forest. These are mostly the result of the lack of clear and effective tenure after the state took control more than 100 years ago. The forest had become government-owned, but with open access, as there were no effective controls over who could enter the forest and what they could take. Over time, the forest degraded, and the benefits for the local community decreased. Protecting the forest through guarding proved counterproductive and ineffective. These measures were aimed at delinking local people from their forests and prohibiting use of them. This was not practical, given the large areas and remoteness, and it devalued the forest in the eyes of the local people, undermining their previous sense of responsibility. Participatory Forest Management, PFM for short, starts by seeking to explore the views of the local communities. It sees the local people and their ties to the forest as an opportunity, not as a threat. Building on the experience of a project in a neighboring area, the Southwest Forests and Landscapes grouping has launched the Wild Coffee Conservation Project by PFM. Under new legislation, local communities can sign agreements with the district administration, representing the regional government. The project works at the lowest possible level, so that the communities who actually use the forest are the ones who sign the agreements. The government officially recognizes that these communities have rights to use and manage their forest. Legally, the forest remains government property, as all land is in Ethiopia, but the communities have clear and long-term use rights. Under the agreement, communities can obtain benefits from the forests, as specified by the regulations. In turn, they have the responsibility of ensuring the forest is maintained and enhanced. Along with the agreement, the community develops a management plan which is agreed with the government. This is based on a common understanding of the resources of the forest. The management plan not only ensures the forest is maintained, but also focuses on increasing its productivity, thereby making the forest more valuable for people. Local communities have to identify different areas within their forest. Some are assigned for forest enhancement and sustainable use, some for maintenance, protecting steep slopes. Other areas are the ones where wild coffee will be able to evolve without disturbance. The PFM approach encourages active forest management by local people who traditionally depend on the forest. They will keep out non-members and control forest use, while also developing the income potential of the forest in a sustainable manner. Overall forest degradation is halted. A critical question for implementing PFM is how communities can generate increased income, creating the incentive for forest maintenance. The answer lies in the development and marketing of particular forest products. These must not impact upon the maintenance of the forest, nor the conditions that allow wild coffee to evolve in its natural habitat. Wild honey is one of the most successful forest products so far. Specialized community-based companies already send their produce to wholesalers in Addis Ababa and through them to overseas markets. Developing other non-timber forest products from the natural forest, such as spices, are also potential sources of income, as are low-volume sustainable timber extraction and carbon payments linked to the increased carbon stored in the more productive forests. For PFM to succeed, local people and the government have to acknowledge they have a shared interest in protecting the natural forest and its resources for economic and environmental purposes. Once the PFM approach is tested and fine-tuned in the Wild Coffee Conservation Project, it will provide a compelling win-win solution for forest and biodiversity conservation. In this way, the birthplace of Arabica coffee will be maintained, and so benefit future generations across the world. While the PFM approach can be used in this way, it is also relevant for other forest areas of Africa and beyond, where there is a need to find a self-sustaining approach to conservation that works for both the people and their forests.